Welcome to the fourth lecture of particle physics. We will start with decays and conservation laws. Every elementary particle decays into a lighter particle, but there are some elementary particles which do not decay because of some conservation laws. Okay, neutrino and photon, they are stable, kind of stable because their mass is approximately zero, and there is nothing lighter than that in which they can decay. Electron is stable. Electron is stable because it is the lightest charged particle, and to conserve the charge, it does not decay. Proton is kind of stable. In harsh condition, proton decays, but in normal condition, proton does not decay because it is the lightest baryon, and there is a conservation of baryon number that we will see later. Similarly, positron and proton are also stable. But apart from these, other particles decay spontaneously. To be clear, neutron also decays. Neutron also decays. Its lifetime is roughly about 15 minutes. But in general case, when an atom is formed, neutron generally, don't decay because it is crowded by other particles. Okay. Our world is populated with proton, neutron, electron, photon, and neutrino. There are more than these particles, but those particles have a very low lifetime. They don't last longer. For example, in case of muon, muon has lifetime of 10 to the power minus 6 second. Pi meson, there are pi plus, pi 0, then there is pi minus meson. All are having very less time period, lifetime. That is why they decay immediately. Most particles exhibit several different decay modes. That is, a single particle can decay via a lot of modes. For example, consider the kaon. This is a kaon particle. It can decay via a lot of modes. First one is muon plus neutrino of muon, then pion plus pion, then pion, then three pions, then electron plus, positron plus neutrino plus pion. Now they can decay in percentage, like the possibility of this decay to happen is 64%. For this decay to happen is 21%. For this to happen is 6%. Then this to happen 5%. There are more than these four decays which are not mentioned here, but there are obviously more kind of decays. Now, one of the main goal of this elementary particle theory is that we should know about the particle's lifetime, average lifetime, and their branching ratio. Now, what is a branching ratio? Branching ratio is basically particle decaying via individual mode divided by total modes of decay of particle. Like the amount, suppose we have to find branching ratio for this reaction. Then the amount of particle decaying via this mode divided by the amount of particle decaying via all the modes. Okay, that will give us the branching ratio. Moving further, how to tell for a decay that via what interaction it happens. There are four basic interactions, but we use here strong, weak, and electromagnetism only. In case of any reaction, how can we tell that it interacted via strong interaction or weak or electromagnetic? Then there is some distinguishing here. For strong decay to happen, the lifetime of particles should be around 10 to the power minus 23 second. For EM decay to happen, it should be around 10 to the power minus 16 second. For weak decay to happen, it should be between 10 to the power minus 3 second, minus 13 second to up to 15 minutes. Which means that neutrons also decay via weak interaction. The longer the mass difference, the faster is the decay. What does this mean? That if the parent particle is very heavy and their daughter particle are very uh, light, then the decay is very fast because of the mass difference. This is the example here. This decay is 10 to the power 4 times faster than this decay because of the fact that positron is much lighter than muon. Positron is heavier than muon. Okay. Now roughly speaking, particles with lifetime greater than 10 to the power minus 17 seconds are basically called stable particles. So it is possible to say any particle with lifetime less than 10 to the power minus second to be stable. We roughly call it. There are some conservation laws which permits or forbid a certain reaction. For example, there is a very basic law, very basic conservation law, and it is of energy and momentum, conservation of energy and momentum. For example, a light particle cannot decay into a heavy particle. We should apply extreme amount of energy to do such reactions. Otherwise, it never happens, and we can discard it by saying that it violates energy and momentum conservation law. The first conservation law is the conservation of charge. This conservation law was the basic conservation law, so it is applicable everywhere. That is why we don't care a lot about it. The first one is conservation of charge. In case of weak interaction, the lepton or quark that comes out may not have the same charge as the one that went in, but if so, the difference is carried out by W plus minus boson. As I told earlier that in weak interaction, the charge may not be conserved. That means the flavor may not be conserved. And I'm sorry to say flavor. Let's continue it with charge. Flavor will be introduced later. If in a weak interaction the charge is not conserved, then the weak interaction mediator particle W plus minus boson is the boson that carries that charge which is not conserved. Okay. Now do we remember this formula? E dot delta D delta T is approx is equals to H bar. This is an uncertainty equation. We can also write it as like this: delta T is approx is equals to H bar by delta E, and delta E can be written as delta MC square. Now what does this signify? This signifies that lifetime of a particle is inversely proportional to the mass. That is, the heavier the particle is, the less is its lifetime. Okay. Now conservation of color. It is not just like any color, but it is a color. It is a kind of charge, you can say. We call it color charge. Okay. So we have a conservation law for color. Electromagnetic and weak interaction do not affect color. Okay. So what does affect color? Only strong interaction affects it. Now, at a strong vertex, the quark color does change, but the difference is carried out by the gluon. Like in the previous case, where the charge was conserved by W plus minus boson, here the color is conserved by gluon. Okay. The direct gluon coupling also conserve color. Very important point. Since all the particles have overall color 0, that is, every particle is considered to be of white color, because in a certain way the color mix up and they give a null color, or you can say white color. So we say that for any particle to get in or to get out, it has a 0 color in and a 0 color out. So this conservation of color is actually very basic, and we don't consider it very crucial, or like it will never happen. It always happen. Conservation of charges, color is always valid. Now conservation of baryon number. The baryons, as we have seen, baryons consist of proton, neutron, kaons, proton, neutrons and other particles, summation or those particles. Now how to assign these numbers? B is equals to 1 for baryons and B is equals to -1 for antibaryons, and also B is equals to 0 for any particle else. Now this is a very conceptual thing about conservation of baryon. To remember that baryons can only have their separate conservation number. Obviously we say that there is a baryon number, but there is never a meson number. Why? Because every quark has a baryon number of +1/3. and every antiquark has a baryon number of minus 1 by 3. So in case of baryons, they are made up of 3 quarks, and those 3 quarks can only be either set of quarks or set of antiquarks. So when we sum up the quarks, we get plus 1. When we sum up antiquark, we get minus 1. Therefore, we have a baryon number. But we don't have a meson number, because for quark we have plus 1 by 3 and for antiquark we have minus 1 by 3. Both add up to 0. In any meson, we have a 0 value of a baryon number. Therefore, baryon number is only valid, not meson number. Next is electron number, muon number, tauon number conservation law. We never call it the lepton number conservation, because lepton number conservation is a bit confusing type. Here we will see about families, like family of electron. These 4 are the family of electron, these 4 are the family of tauon, these 4 are the family of muon. In case of electron and their its neutrino, we have lepton number plus 1. In case of their antiparticle, we have lepton number, electron-lepton number minus 1. Then we have tauon and its neutrino. Here we get assign them a lepton-tauon number, which is plus 1. For their antiparticle, the lepton-tauon number is minus 1. Similarly, for muon, the lepton-muon number is plus 1 for muon and its neutrino. For its antiparticle, it is minus 1. Now remember, if it weren't for Cabibbo mixing, we would have separate conservation laws for each generation of quarks. I mean, like leptons, where leptons have, you remember this, that leptons has this type of family. Don't they have these types of family? So they are called generations in pair. Now, in the similar fashion, we have quarks also, UD, CS and TV. Now, if Cabibbo did not told us that the generation could mix in case of quark, then we would have separate quantum number, or you can say conservation laws for these quark generation too. But thanks to Cabibbo, we don't have this. Now moving further, approximate conservation of flavor. As I was talking earlier, that charge and flavor are a bit different. In flavor we basically talk about the charge carried out by the quark, which can be in fraction form. Quark can have charge with plus 2 by 3 electronic charge, and it can also have minus 1 by 3 times of electronic charge. Now flavor is always conserved in strong and electromagnetic magnetic vortex, but it is not conserved in weak vortex. Okay, so flavor is basically not conserved in weak vortex. Weak vortex means in case of any Feynman diagram, this is called a vortex, and at this vortex the flavor is not conserved. That's what I'm talking about. In weak vortex, an up quark may turn to down quark or even a strange quark possible. And you know that up quark has charge of plus 2 by 3, and it converts into down quark which has minus 1 by 3. Or up quark can also conserve into strange quark which has minus 1 by 3. So you see there is a huge difference. You can say it is a difference of it has a difference of minus e. It has a difference of minus e. Now, because the weak forces are so weak, we say that the various flavors are approximately conserved. I mean, we'll say that since it is a weak force and we don't know a lot about it, so we say that flavors are approximately kind of conserved. Now here comes the Gell-Mann. Gell-Mann's formula is very important, that we'll see later, or I think you have learned it before starting particle. I mean these lectures, you must have some rough idea about particle physics. This approximation led Gell-Mann to introduce a strangeness. Due to this theory, this conservation law, we came to strangeness. And Gell-Mann said that strangeness is because of the fact that charge is not conserved and strange particles are always produced in pairs. That is, where there is a strange quark, there is an anti-strange quark. For this reaction, it is valid. But in case of this reaction, it is not valid because we have only S quark. So how can it be possible? But the reaction is okay. The reaction is seen, but conservation of strangeness is not valid. Then Gell-Mann said that the conservation of strangeness is violated. It can only be violated in case of weak interaction. That is, weak interaction can have this kind of possibility. Now we go into a very important rule that is called the Uzi rule. The Uzi rule. Here we denote a term psi as charmonium pair. Charmonium consists of charm quark and anti-charm quark, and it has a bound state too. It is in a bound state. The charmonium quark, or you can say psi, has a long lifetime, and that lifetime is of 10 to the power minus 10 second. The psi, or as I said, it is a charmonium pair with charm and anti-charm quark. It decays. Psi decay is clearly via strong interaction because of its lifetime 10 to the power minus 20 second. And we know that the lifetime for a strong interaction is 10 to the power minus 23 second. But still, there is a lag of 1,000 second, isn't it? So how is it possible that this charmonium pair or psi has a lifetime 1,000 times slower than strong decays, normally strong decays? To understand that, we have to first understand about the pair of strange quark. We call it as phi meson. Phi meson. And this phi meson is a bound state of a strange and anti-strange quark. This phi meson decays more often into 2 kaons than into 3 pions. Okay. But the 3 pions are kinetically more viable than 2 kaons reaction because of the fact that the mass of kaon is very high and mass of pion is very less. And as I told earlier, that the lighter the mass is, the more spontaneous the decay is. Okay. Now it is decaying into 2 kaons or into 3 pions. It does not decay into 2 pions because of certain conservation laws. We will discuss it later, obviously. Now energetically, pions are favored, but kaons are not favored. How is this possible and what makes it possible? Well, here comes the Ozzy rule. Okubo, Zweig, and Izuka. It states that if the diagram can be cut in two by slicing only gluon line and not cutting open any external particle, the process is suppressed. I will show you diagrammatically how it is done. Here the 3 pion diagram can be cut into two by sniping only gluon lines. That is, here are the two diagrams for phi meson. Phi meson, which is consist of S and S dash quark. First one decays into kaon, K minus and K plus. And here is the kind of reaction we see. Now, in case of gluon, if we try to snap here, if we try to cut this one from middle, it is not possible because it will cut this line. It will also cut this line. Okay. Now in case of this diagram, where phi has disintegrated into pi plus, pi 0 and pi minus, we have 3 gluons in parallel to each other, and we can easily cut that. We can easily cut it. Okay. So when gluons are in parallel, they can be cut, and when they are cut, it is called a suppressed decay. And for suppressed decay, the decay is generally not possible. I mean, the decay is possible, but it is suppressed by initial decay, by this decay. Okay. Now, OG rule is related to asymptotic freedom also. In an OZ suppressed diagram, gluon must be hard. That means that gluons, if we are sniping the gluons, that means we are cutting the gluons. That gluons must have enough energy. Gluons must have enough energy in themselves to make three particles. Okay, that is why we call it as hard, high energy. Okay. Also, but asymptotic freedom says that the gluons couple weakly at high energy. That means the gluons couple very weakly at high energy. What does it mean is that the quark confinement happens only at weak energy and it does not happen in high energy. And it is as said by OZ. OZ said that OZ suppressed diagram also has the same viability. Okay. What we see is that OZ allowed processes, the gluons are soft and low energy, and obviously the coupling is strong here. That means in these two cases, this diagram can be said OZ allowed, and this is called OZ suppressed. Now very sincerely understand this, that in case of OZ allowed, the gluons are soft. These gluons are soft, and the soft the gluon is, the low energy it has, and the lower the energy is, the higher the quark confinement. The higher the quark confinement. Okay. Therefore, this decay is possible in a blink of a second. But in case of this reaction, which is OZ suppressed, the gluons which are cut has to make these three particles on their own, and therefore the gluons are hard in here and they have high energy, very high energy, and the gluon and the quark confinement is low. The quark confinement is low, that is, it does not form a particle using quarks very easily. It takes a lot of time to form it. Okay. Therefore, this analogy is from asymptotic freedom, and the OZ rule allows asymptotic freedom to happen. In this way, the OZ rule and asymptotic freedom are very related. And this is also a qualitative example. For quantitatively, we have to learn more about QCD, chromodynamics. Now, do we remember about psi, which is a bound state of charm quark and anti-charm quark? The same rule that we applied on phi, which was the bound state of strange and anti-strange quark, applies here also. Okay. Here the psi decays into 3 pi, and psi can also decay into 2 d meson, 2 charged d meson. D is some kind of particle and d meson is also some kind of particle. Now, to be very clear, d mesons always have a d quark. Similarly, we have a b meson. It always have a bottom quark, and d meson always have a down quark. Okay. So psi can be disintegrated into pi, 3 pi and d mesons. Now 3 pi is OZ suppressed as we see, and d meson is favored. Disintegration into 2 d meson is favored. But here is some problem. The thing is that d mesons are very heavy, and the d mesons are so heavy that they surpass the value of psi meson. Okay, so this reaction is kinematically impossible or forbidden. This method is forbidden, and we also know that psi decaying into 3 pi is OG suppressed. Therefore, we know that psi can only decay via these three reactions, and these three reactions are kind of not possible. So due to this marvelous configuration where the decay of psi is looking kind of impossible, we have a higher lifetime of psi. And what we said earlier, that psi has approx lifetime of 10 to the power minus 20 second, and in case of normal strong interaction the lifetime should be 10 to the power minus 23 second. Therefore psi lives 1000 seconds more than any other particle that decay via strong interaction. That is all for today.